I, from my point of view, think Scream started as a parody and then became a legit horror movie. Unlike a lot of franchises that became a legit horror movie and kind of almost became a parody. And this movie kind of solidifies it's now pretty much a horror franchise rather than putting it in the comedy section.
Yeah, it's more smart horror than it is like satirical.
Not elevator horror.
No, not elevator. No, I agree with you. It's kind of like a thing where, especially because you have the symbionts with like Scary Movie. Yeah. Both Scream and Scary Movie are both satirizing horror, but Scream hinges on the horror a little bit more. Scary Movie hinges on the comedy a lot more. And then they even had the same title at one point. They were both called Scary Movie, and then one was called Scream. So
parody a parody, and then it's almost like a copy of a copy, right?
Exactly. So we're here today to talk Scream, but not that Scream, the new Scream, which is called Scream, from 2/3 of Radio Silence, which is our directors. We'll talk about it today. Join us. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and thanks again for finding us. Thanks again for watching, and for our loyal fans, thank you to continue to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We have a Patreon. Check that out for some great options. Today we're going to talk about the fifth installment. Usually gets tiresome, but this has a boost in energy. I loved it. Scream 5.
Scream 5. So 25 years after the infamous Woodsboro Massacre, which serves as the inspiration for the popular Stab film franchise, another killer has taken on the Ghostface persona in an attempt to create a requel or legacy-quel to the original film. And Sidney, Gale, and Dewey must rise up to defend their new group of potential victims, including Sam Carpenter, who has a deadly and dark connection to the original murders.
All right, just a heads up, this is going to be a spoiler, but I'm going to give you a fun fact. If you guys are fine arts students or you know about fine arts, Ghostface is an inspiration for Edvard Munch's The Scream, which is the title of the movie, Scream.
That's fair.
So if you look at the painting, he's going, ah, but that's Ghostface too. So if you catch that, that'd probably be a trivia point too. I'm just saying it because a lot of people are discovering now that are a little bit younger than us are like, that's from the famous painting Scream. Yeah, Edvard Munch, The Scream.
Yeah. So. Well, and the Ghostface thing is funny because they went through so many iterations with the mask to come to something that was so inexpensive as just buying a Fun World mask, and the fact that Fun World has to get licensed every time they make a new one of these, that company's probably doing pretty well for themselves just based on this franchise.
Yeah. What I really like about Scream, there's a lot of little things, but really I get a chuckle out of is out of all the killers in franchise slash horrors, Scream is probably the most jellyish one. He just looks like he's just made out of jelly. He goes through windows. He's so splashy, awkward, bumping down steps, going through glass and everything. Where like Jason and Michael Myers are all stiff,
straight-laced.
Yeah, straight. And he is just blah.
Well, and that's the fun. If you could do a supercut of this. The Scream killer, the Ghostface killer, is always kind of klutzy.
Yes.
I think that pervades the fact that he or she is human. Like, and that we get that, and that's in every single movie. Now, to prep for this film, I watched Scream 1, 2, 3, 4. I even watched like 5 episodes of the TV
think it's
show.
Like made out of jelly.
And they're all like that. And I like that. They're like that the killer is real. And so that while the film is satirizing certain elements of culture today for horror, it's also like having fun and it's being realistic. If there's a masked killer on the loose, he's probably not going to always be the most.
Yeah, it can hurt him a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You can hurt him, probably not can kill him, but you can hurt him and you can hear it like, ow, you got me. Yeah, but that's what I get a chuckle out of this. So yeah, it's kind of it's always a parody, and always self-aware. Mm-hmm. This movie follows all the rules and still seems fresh and fun. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. I was actually not as nervous about this movie as a lot of other people do because Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, who are 2/3 of Radio Silence, the directing team or the filmmaking team, also did a film a couple years ago called Ready or Not, which actually, if you listen to the St. Paul Filmcast, I put on my top 10 of the year, or maybe my top 15. It was in my top films of the year. I absolutely adored that movie. They also worked on the original VHS film, and they helped produce the new one. So, like, I was aware of these guys for a while. The only film of theirs I don't like is a movie called Devil's Due from 2014. I thought that movie was atrocious, but it was found footage, and it was just kind of like... it was just kind of not good and not worth checking out. Yeah. But everything they've done since then I've been a really big fan of. So I was not too nervous about this, and I'm not one of those people who thinks a filmmaker has to stay on things for that long. Like, Wes Craven making the first 4 of these is pretty cool. But it's nice to get some fresh blood and try something different.
They have a party and the balloons say For West. That's hilarious.
Well, the idea that they named a character after Wes Craven.
His name is West, yeah.
And then they got to homage some of Wes Craven's work throughout the film. And I liked that this movie, it feels like The Last Jedi. It feels like The Matrix Resurrections in that it is taking homage to everything that came before. Mm-hmm. It's also developing characters in a unique way.
Yeah, you're right.
I like that we see Tatum's ashes in Dewey's house. I like that there's a reference to the
Meeks.
Oh yeah, the Meeks Martin kids who are Randy's nephew and niece, who are both very smart on horror films.
That seems to be
we
genetic.
Get references to Scream 3, which I think is great because a lot of people kind of deride that one as the worst one. We hear Mark as Sidney's husband, who is Patrick Dempsey's character from Scream 3, so that tells you that they got together at some point after the murders in that film. Right. I like that this film sends up a little bit of homage to all those pieces, but also doesn't rely heavily on the nostalgia. Because there's
like
multiple
Matrix
times where they could have
Resurrection
done
did.
it.
Yeah. Matrix is hardly with the nostalgia, but right, it's a dance, and they hit the right points at the right time with also being fresh and new, and that's tough to do. Mm-hmm. Because I watched the first couple of minutes like, we're going to do the same crap we did before, but it has a really interesting point. Actually survived.
That is amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
And partially because they kind of
did a fantastic job with that. That's probably 2 weeks just with her.
Oh yeah, and she's probably I think my favorite performance from a newcomer to this film because I'd never seen any of her work or she was in Iron Man 3, but I don't really remember her in that movie. But she was in the opening and that part was basically I would say ruined in the trailer. It's very heavily on the trailer. So you're like, okay, she's gonna be our Drew Barrymore. She dies and then we move on. The fact that she lives is a twist upon something we had expected from all four previous films.
But then there's a reason why she lived too.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, yeah. So.
Yeah, and every character seemingly in the film seems to serve driving the narrative forward, with the exception of one. Kyle Gallner appears as this weird mustachioed guy in the bar, and he's the second death in the movie, and it seems like he's only there to die the next scene. I don't know any purpose for him.
I think there's a reason for that guy to be the character. Is almost a trace back to 80s. He's got a very 80s look to him. He's got a very 80s vehicle and attitude. It's almost like we're disseminating the 80s kind of slasher.
What I would have liked with his character is for him not to die, though. Because here's something that I noticed is when you look back at some of the other Scream films, Mickey in Scream 2, you can kind of start to figure out that he's one of the killers because he stops showing up about an hour into the movie. They dispatch Roman in Scream 3 about an hour in, he gets arrested and then released. And even, as the film goes on, you kind of see where these people, disappear. Peggy Salt, who we find out as Mrs. Loomis in Scream 2, she's there throughout the entire film, so it's kind of obvious there's this new character that shows up. She's not getting killed, but she keeps pervading the scene. We kind of figure out she's going to be the killer. This one would have been great if he had been our red herring. Would have been that he keeps showing up in scenes serving no purpose, and then maybe he's the last death in the movie.
One of the people, you don't really talk about Stu at all, but Billy Loomis gets a little bit of peppered in there.
Yeah,
I like almost like Mr. Brooks, almost like.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you watch Mr. Brooks, you gotta
I like that he shows up in the film, and I like that there's kind of a messiness to his character in the movie, in that. We're not sure how we're supposed to feel about him showing up in the movie.
He's kind of a little bit warmed up.
He's kind of a loving father to Sam. But
then,
a
psychopath.
You've got to realize this is all in her head. This is what she thinks of as her dad. So, there's kind of an odd moment. Someone else pointed it out in their review as well, which is that moment near the end of the film where she looks into the mirror and sees him smiling back. And I was like, that's what I feel about that.
But that was very much like Mr. I watched Mr. Brooks. It's that's almost like you took from Mr. Brooks. He's imaginary or a bit, Right.
Yeah, and I expected both Stu and Billy to be in this movie because those two actors, Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich, were doing a lot of press for this movie. So I was expecting something. There's been a big fan theory going around online that Stu was going to be one of the killers because we see him get his face smashed in, but they never really said if he was dead or not. There was a lot of people thinking he was going to be the killer, and that would go back to the Lega sequel idea of going back to the original. I was kind of I like Matthew Lillard, so it'd be okay if he showed up, but I also don't find
it's kind of weird that he didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You got the twins, mm-hmm. and she's kind of taking over the couch and everything. But you watch a little bit, and you're are they at the house? They're at the party, and at the same house.
Yeah.
And then the big reveal is not from what we've seen it so many times, but I think if people that are experienced would recognize they're at the house before the big reveal, and that kind of was the little bit. If I have to nitpick, that was a little deflating because it was a big shock to me.
Yeah, I knew they were going to end up at the house at some point. I just wasn't sure that was the house when it happens because we don't spend a lot of time with the exterior. Yeah. But I knew that we would at some point be in the house where it takes place, and I thought that was a fun idea. Again, going back to the original, but not really being so heavily homaged that it's jarring,
you know, the three are going to return: Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, and we had a bet of who's going to die. I lost. That's right. I know you were right.
So let me explain why.
Right. Go ahead.
So in the first Scream, Dewey gets killed. They just cut the scene where he actually, like, they shot a scene of him being taken out at the end because they were like, well, we like this character, we want to bring him back. He died in the original script. They bring him back for Scream 2. Again, he gets killed. Like, he gets stabbed the hell out of in that second movie. And Gale has to watch it happen. It's really heartbreaking. So he survives that one, too. The third movie, the killer throws a knife, like, ninja style, up a staircase. And it just happens to hit him on the, like, blunt end of the knife instead of the knife part, knocking Dewey unconscious. But again, he survived by pure luck. Every time, every movie, these three come back. And if they had not killed one of them in this fifth movie, I would have cried shenanigans. Because
you had to do it.
You have to do it. And I got to the point where in Scream 4, I didn't fear for those characters. No. Because it's not going to happen. And so in Scream 5, one of them has to go, and he seems like the guy who's just gotten too lucky too many times.
He's living like Josh Brolin in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, he's trailering it up, man. Good for him. He looks good with that mustache.
I get a kick out of the product placements in this movie. Cheez-Its was a big deal. But it was fun. All right, is this movie going to be on Netflix? Do you know how many times they mention it? Or...
Maybe. I don't know. And the tough thing is, because now this is owned by a different group because they purchased it up after the Weinstein kind of fallout happened with their Spyglass, like, picked up a bunch of properties from Dimension to start moving them forward in somewhere. So
that's a good gig, though.
Yeah, and I think they picked a good franchise to fight for. I know Blumhouse was looking for it, but they're kind of stacked up right now with their franchise work. So it was a nice thing to see two new directors come in that have a love for what came before but aren't afraid to push forward. And that's what I think is my favorite part about this movie, and probably what will make this movie rise above Scream 4 for me, because they're both very similar in what they're talking about, is that this film feels like it's really got a knack for what it's attacking, and that is toxic fandom. I hate toxic fandom so much that having our killers be toxic fans is fantastic.
Yeah. And they get a little stab at YouTubers. I do love that.
Yeah, I'll take that. It's fair.
Yeah,
most of YouTube, most of the internet is a cesspool.
So. The greatest stab that they ever do is against toxic fan bases. That, just get over, instead of going on a murder rampage, right?
Well, and taking it back, I'd heard a rumor that this was going to happen in the film, but having Stab 8, where they say it's directed by the Knives Out guy, and it's the 8th installment. As a fan of The Last Jedi, as a big fan of The Last Jedi, I was like, oh, I feel like we're digging the knife in and kind of but then I realized that the whole point of it is that they're attacking the director for trying to do something new with the Stab franchise, even though it's a chrome face ghost face and he's got a freaking flamethrower in that one scene.
I know.
I really like that.
You gotta amp it up. Always amp it up. Right.
And I like that there's these killers are we're upset because you've ruined our franchise and we're gonna take it back because it's for us. And it's it's again two fans speaking from the perspective of all fans. Everybody wants this, and it's great to have that kind of be what the focus of the film is.
Scream 1 through 3 came out when I was in college, so it's kind of nice to go back to all the movies that this is when I was in college. So a little bit, I'm kind of the same age as Neve and everybody, but to watch them and go, oh my God, they're so old. Because even Heather Matazio is in this.
Yeah,
Matarazzo.
Yep,
she's in this movie. She's famous from Welcome to the Dollhouse, but she's peppered into Devil's Advocate, and then she comes in and it's now we're going totally 90s.
Well, and it was again that's a nice appearance because she was in Scream 3 in one scene, and again having Marley Shelton from Scream 4 make an appearance. This film, it doesn't all these appearances don't feel like they're forced in. They feel they're a natural part of the storytelling. Marley Shelton was a cop in the fourth film, and in fact, funny enough, she was planned on dying too, but they didn't include that scene in the final movie, so she survived. So two people who were supposed to die previously in this franchise make it to this film, and they get killed anyway.
They pulled the rug out of me because I thought we were going to get a male perspective of this psycho scene. I thought we're going to get the male kind of, we're going to get that reverse genders on the shower scene, and they just
see. And maybe that would be one of the only criticisms I have is when that happened, I was like, okay, so he's going to use her son to get her. There was a lot of moments in the movie where I kind of saw it coming. I guessed one of the two killers. I guess there'd be two because there's almost always two in these movies. And I guessed one of the two very obviously at the beginning of the movie. And I was like, okay, this is what's going to happen. I so
bad wanted a reverse gender for Psycho. That would have been fun. If I was directing the movie, I would totally do it.
That's fair.
Kind of cheat a little bit of it. Because you did the shot of the showers coming, like totally Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
A little bit of him. They dance around it, but they didn't really do it. Go for it.
I almost would have liked if that was the killer's motive, was recreating iconic scenes from other movies. Would have just been like, that would have been a motive, because they hint at the trailer like the killer is going after people related to the original murders, and I don't know if they fully go into that. I don't know if they really like.
There's one minus of the movie.
Yeah. So like, there's bits and pieces of it that didn't work as well, but what does works really well.
The rewatchability is high. I don't mind if I want to watch it right now.
I kind of wanted to go back and see it again because I had some awful people sitting in my theater, so I kind of wanted to go back and watch it the next day anyway, but I didn't get the time. Yeah. So it's interesting to me again because this also feels like a turn in that we get a new leading lady. I mean, we have Melissa. Yeah, I think it's Melissa Barrera. Yeah, who is great in The Heights. Is Sam Carpenter, is our new leading lady, I guess.
I got it too.
I really enjoyed. I liked her performance in the movie. I think she gets a little overshined by Jenna Ortega, and she's not as good as she was in The Heights. But I did like Melissa Barrera.
She's a little more grounded of a character, not like Sydney's emotions valleys that you get. She's a little more centered, but she's a little more psychopathic. But we know why.
That's what's great too. Is again like homaging Scream 3, where Sydney dreams of her dead mother. We have her like having visions of her dead father, and having that interplay.
I like that dance. I didn't think about that. Right? Yeah. But Sydney was very the valleys of emotions, up and down, and but here you have a character who's really almost has it in and about ready to blow off. You know that she's almost like a powder kid. If you just give it a little spike, she might blow off, and then she does. So it's a little more grounded. Yeah, I do love the word contrast.
Yep, and we get Sydney. Kind of, I mean, she made it through that first film because she was strong. But by the time the second one comes around, one of my favorite lines from Scream 2 with her talking about Billy Loomis and being like, I effing killed him.
Service?
Yeah, she did that, but like it goes, you forgot something about Billy Loomis, I effing killed him. And I was like, yeah, that's our heroine right there. She kicks into high gear.
Forget,
Melissa Barrera does that with Sam. As the film comes to a close, she embraces the side of her that's a little more unhinged. And her killing of the killer at the end of this movie is fantastic because she just goes for it. And that's what all of these horror movies fail to do is we shot the killer, now let's run. And she's like, nope. And she just goes.
Until you are just minced meat, yes.
Yep. And that's kind of the nice thing is it juxtaposes with Dewey's failure to stop the killer when he goes into the hospital. Because you kind of know it's coming. They have that emotional scene.
I mean, hold it a little bit, and then you got the long tracking sequences and everything. So it's like,
But the movie does a good job of making you wonder if it's going to happen, even though you kind of know it is. And what I mean by that is I was under the sneaking suspicion that he was going to kill the killer in that scene, and then the movie was going to keep going, and we were going to learn that there was a second one after the fact. But then having it where he shows up and he's doing the right thing, but he's got that like cowboy stance where he walks in, he like loads the gun, and
you got a little bit of a western feel.
It was a good way to go out, I think.
So, have you seen Scream 5? Can we call it Scream 5?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to call it Scream 5. I get the idea about doing the title thing, but come on, like I hate the Halloween 2018, the Scream 5, the Texas Chainsaw. Call it a movie.
What the hell? It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Go check it out. I think it's my third favorite of the Scream franchise, and I can't wait to see it again.
My funny point is, I like when the guy gets stabbed and he tries to call 911 on his phone, but his hands are so bloody.
Oh yeah. Oh man. See, there's so many things about it that I forgot about.
I laughed so hard at that. That was great. Damn it.
Exactly. So have you seen Scream 5? Let us know your thoughts. Where does it rank in your Scream ranking? Where does it rank in your Radio Silence ranking? And do you love or hate the fact that Mikey Madison gets killed in the exact same way that she did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Let us know in the comments down below
your
thoughts on the film. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out that Patreon. You can get a lot of cool ideas, and you can maybe pick some of the different films we'll talk about next time on the show.
Maybe we'll pick some elevated horror.
I like some of it. I do. The title. But for everybody here at Kyle and Nick on Film, you can find my film reviews over on goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find the St. Paul Filmcast anywhere on the internet.
Perfect. And until next time, keep your friends close, your enemies closer, and watch out for anybody with a knife.